Thank you very much for this, Nassim, and for all of you for being here. Everyone can hear me okay? Dr. Dawood Abdullah, thank you for honoring us once more and for giving us this platform, to all the people who did everything that they could do to make this a success, and it is very much a success, alhamdulillah. To our writers who are here with us today, you are all winners, regardless of the outcome. The fact that you are all being part of helping us, guiding us in shaping a Palestinian narrative when we need it most is, in my books, is the real victory and the real achievement. Let me just mention a few names that I would like to, they are not with us today, unfortunately, but I would like to mention these names because I feel that they could maybe help me personally kind of create what I think should be the markers for this Palestinian narrative and why we need this today more than ever before. Isra Ja'abis. Who've heard of Isra before? Right. So Isra is this heroic Palestinian woman who's enduring in an Israeli prison right now. She was sentenced to 11 years in prison. Her car exploded 500 meters away from an Israeli checkpoint. They said there was some sort of a technical error. Something went wrong with the car. They said that she was planning to kill soldiers. They never really managed to prove that in court, but you know, Israeli courts, anything goes when the accused is a Palestinian. 65% of Isra's body is burned. And really, I mean, I'm sure that many of you have seen the picture, even though the name did not connect immediately when I mentioned it. In a way, she embodies everything beautiful about us, even when 65% of her body is burned. Her resilience, her dignity makes her beauty of a different kind. And I feel like it's so important to mention Isra. Khalida Jarrar. Khalida Jarrar is finely educated, articulate, well-spoken, organizer, mobilizer in Palestine. She is with the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. She has been in jail several times, and she is in an Israeli jail held as in administrative detention. She is not begging her jailers for mercy or begging or beseeching anyone for her freedom. Rather, she is educating women, Palestinian women, in the Israeli jail about their rights and about international law. Khalida is an example of the Palestinian intellectual who's not detached, disconnected, just sitting there passing judgments, but rather is very much involved. When they came for her to arrest her the last time, you would think that the entire so-called security of the state of Israel hinged on arresting Khalida Jarrar. The number of soldiers, hundreds of them, surrounded her house. They were trying to make a point. And her point that she was trying to make, in fact, when they stormed into her house, she was in the middle of doing research on taking Israel to the International Court of Justice. Khadr Adnan, the Palestinian prisoner who was one of the leaders of what we call Ma'rakat al-Am'a al-Khawiya, the battle of empty stomachs. He went on the original hunger strike, and with him, many Palestinian prisoners, men and women, joined him and continued to prove to the Israeli jailer that the Palestinian might be weak, hungry, strapped to his bed, as they usually do, their hands and legs, yet still has the ability to resist. This is not a sentimental value. I'm not talking poetry. This is an everyday reality. And they win. And they are released, and he was released only a few days ago. And I have a feeling that they will arrest him again, and he will resist them again and again and again. Nasser al-Msaybah, a 12-year-old boy from Gaza who was killed last September. You don't know Nasser, but I think you might. He was the boy who developed the mask of how to lessen the harm of the Israeli tear gas that is lobbed against the kids and their families and the peaceful protesters at the Gaza border. Nasser was killed late September. And 18 years earlier, almost 18 years to the day, Muhammad al-Durra, a 12-year-old child from Gaza, was also killed by the Israeli army as his father was trying to protect him before the hail of Israeli bullets. Sadly, the story is actually written in the way it's portrayed in Western media, that either we still don't know what happened, or it was another Palestinian scam. They tried to lie to us, the same way they scammed us regarding what actually happened in Jenin. It turned out that there was no massacre in Jenin. My first book was about Jenin, and that's what I was told everywhere I went to speak. You lied, there was no massacre in Jenin. Truth has nothing to do with perceptions. The perception that they hold for us in the West in general, in the United States in particular, is that we are out there to demonize Israel, to create this fake narrative that's really ultimately aimed at delegitimizing Israel as a democratic state, the only democracy in the Middle East, mind you. And in the process of doing so, we would go to any extent. So we kill our children and we blame it on Israel. We fight the Israelis and we say they are massacring us. In fact, Israel is a besieged country right now because there are 30,000 protesters, unarmed, children, young people at the border, separating between besieged, impoverished Gaza and Israel, who are actually threatening Israeli security. The twisted logic of the Zionist narrative and the mainstream narrative is absolutely unhinged. Nasser al-Msaybah and Muhammad al-Durra, Archbishop Abdullah Hanna, many of us know who Abdullah Hanna is, this beautiful Palestinian leader with a thundering voice and a message of unity that transcends religion, transcends all divides. Abdullah Hanna is someone that I personally know and greatly appreciate and admire. Ula Marshood, 22-year-old kid who is now, yes, I'm at that age where a 22-year-old is a kid as far as I'm concerned. She was sentenced to 7 months in an Israeli prison for a single post on Facebook. She represents this rising generation in the West Bank that is neither Fatah nor Hamas, neither Sha'biyya nor anything. They are just Palestinians, and they are out there trying to garner solidarity for their people. And the Israelis know it. They know it so very well. And they would do everything in their power to confine them, imprison them. And she, in fact, has been tortured, according to her lawyer. And so many like them. The reason that I'm mentioning these names is because I want to tell you that in reality, when we talk about a Palestinian narrative, this is what we are actually talking about. A Palestinian narrative is this collective story of these individuals and hundreds and thousands and millions like them that make us a people and make our story compelling, our struggle and suffering real, but our resistance everlasting. It is them, in their various capacities and backgrounds and genders and geographies and whatever, that makes us who we are, makes us whole. Despite the fact that we, in fact, have been fragmented in so many different levels. It is them, it's these individuals that makes us relate to this narrative essentially as Palestinians and nothing else. You see, for the last 25 years, and I'm not keeping track of time at all, so when I reach a point that I'm exceeding, if someone could just say something, just kick me out of the stage because you are completely on your own. 25 years of Oslo have completely fragmented and abolished that collective Palestinian narrative that existed for so many years. Prior to Oslo, we had our disagreements. We had our fights. Yet ultimately, we were a nation, one Palestinian nation, at home and in diaspora. In Jenin, in Ain al-Hilwa, in Yarmouk, in Baladiyat neighborhood, in Jabalia, in Balata, they were all Palestinians. But then what happened is for 25 years, there's this systematic attempt at fragmenting us. Gaza and the West Bank are as if they are two separate entities. Now we talk about Gazans and West Bankers. The West Bank is divided to A and B and C. I don't want to bore you with the details. Many of you already know what that entails, but the psychology of you living in area A and B and C with time and with checkpoints creates various layers and levels of fragmentation. Jerusalem, as if it's now not even worthy of discussion. It's Israeli through and through. The Americans moved their embassy there to emphasize that fact, and we have to just go with the flow of time. We have to deal with it. Palestinians, you are still stuck in all of these references and international. This is the reality. Don't tell me international law. This is what it's all about. They want us to forget about Jerusalem entirely. Or perhaps, if they are kind enough, they want to give us a little neighborhood near Jerusalem. And they want us to rename it Jerusalem. You can rename it anything. Call it Jerusalem if you wish, and that is your Jerusalem. The fragmentation happened to the point that rarely we actually speak about Palestinian refugees in South Lebanon. They have endured for so many years. The fragmentation happened to the extent that when Palestinians were being massacred and killed in Syria, many of us did not even know how to fit them into the overall narrative. We didn't even know how to process that. Palestinians in Yarmouk, many of our friends and activists couldn't even take a stance on the fact that there are Palestinians in Yarmouk suffering, and their suffering there was an outcome of the Nakba, was an outcome of the same history that resulted in the suffering of all Palestinians everywhere. So when we talk about the Oslo being dead, Oslo is dead, the two-state solution is dead, fine. I agree with that. But what we don't realize is that Oslo has created a culture and a narrative in our thinking that even though we may oppose Oslo, we are still held accountable to the Oslo discourse that has divided the Palestinians. And we can't do that. We can't do that. This factional discourse is not our discourse. This factionalism doesn't belong to us. We want to rid ourselves of it entirely and completely. The Zionist discourse remains dominant simply because we are still struggling at times to articulate who we are as people. You need to know whether I am Popular Front or Communist or Islamist or Fatah or this and that. There's always this thing amongst us Palestinians, we need to figure out where do we belong in this ideological factional map. It makes no difference. When we are standing at a checkpoint, with an Israeli with his automatic rifle, lining up one after the other. They don't care who's Hamas and who's Fatah. When they opened fire at the children at the Gaza border, they killed over 200 and they wounded over 16,000. They are shooting to maim. There are thousands of new disabled children in Gaza because of this. It makes no difference to them whatsoever, whether they are Hamas or Fatah or anything. Our enemy sees us as one, sees us as a threat, as a demographic threat. And we have to counter that. Not just counter that. Our narrative is not the counter narrative. Our narrative is the narrative, is the only narrative. Because our history as Palestinians in that land goes back to 11,000, 12, 13, 15,000. It's as old as the city of Jericho. Their narrative is the fake narrative, is the counter narrative. There is a particular document that was, or a series of documents and files called, I think, GL 120/17028. Why I remember that, I don't know. This group of files were a request made by Ben Gurion in the late 50s. He requested Israeli intellectuals to come up with an explanation of how do we counter this idea that there is a thing as a right of return. We don't want these refugees back, obviously. So how do we articulate a Zionist discourse that will become our answer to what actually happened, right? So they came up with several, think of it as an editor seeking submissions. They came up with several submissions. And the one that was chosen, the one that we, our ancestors, I come from a village named Beit Daras in Palestine that was destroyed in 48, that our ancestors, and that Palestinians actually faked the reasons of why they actually left. They were not driven out. They were ordered to leave by the Arab armies, right? And that was the one that they, in fact, confirmed, and that was used as the Zionist narrative. You can find that document. Haaretz uncovered it. I know Avi Shleim and Benny Morris and others were trying to find it. They couldn't. Only in recent years, they actually released these files. The reason I'm mentioning this is just to give you an idea about the degree of fabrication in the Zionist narrative and how their story was composed. Compared to our stories. Our story is that old woman, that famous picture of the old woman standing beside the olive tree that the Israeli bulldozer is trying to destroy, and she's hugging the tree as if she's hugging a child. That is the Palestinian narrative. That's how we factor in all of this. So the fact that we are here, producing our own books, articulating our own thoughts, is our way. I wouldn't say it's a bashful attempt, it's a serious attempt, but it's the very, very beginning to try to reanimate the Palestinian narrative once more, that would finally defeat Oslo and the entire intellectual Oslo culture that came with it, and once and for all, pulverize and destroys the Zionist narrative that has absolutely no place in any honest discussion, whether academic or any other. One last thing, I know that there is a main course coming and some people are looking like really stressed out. One thing I would like to say is that if there is one single word that could really sum up what the Palestinian narrative is, I would say it's resistance. Resistance as an idea, as a notion. The moment we cease resisting is the moment we truly, completely fragment and fall and collapse. There are so many forms of resistance, and we are practicing all of them. Cultural resistance. I was raised in a refugee camp in Gaza. I used to go to bookstores, and I used to look for what they called adab al-sujun, literature of prisons. It was always featuring so in a very central position in all of our bookstores. Prisoners writing their stories. That's the Palestinian story. The Palestinian story has to be reclaimed by the Palestinian intellectual. And I'm not saying this as a statement of any sort of ethnocentric inclinations. I am saying this because no one can describe the Nakba like Ghada Karmi can describe the Nakba. Nobody can talk about the experiences of these children standing at the fence separating besieged Gaza from Israel, but the young bloggers from Gaza, and so forth and so on. We need to listen to them. It's their story. They own it. It's the story that matters. We can't have anyone speak on our behalf anymore. I know we have been so very polite about this issue, and I think part of it perhaps is that there's this feeling that when we speak, nobody is going to listen to us, but here you are listening to us, you listened to our authors yesterday. Our stories are compelling. We need to gather our collective self-esteem and say, no, I want to speak on my own, on behalf of my people. I want to narrate the story of my people in every possible platform there is. So it is so important that we once more don't shy away from embracing resistance in all of its forms. And when I get asked, so do you support peaceful resistance or violent resistance? My answer is not your business. We resist, that's what we do. Circumstances compels the form of resistance that is useful and strategic at the time. Every nation in the world that fought for its liberation resisted in whatever means necessary and whatever means available to it. We should not be made the exception yet once more. I think it was Assata Shakur, the African-American activist and intellectual, who said something to the effect of, nobody in the world, nobody in history has ever achieved his freedom by appealing to the moral senses of their oppressors. We need to do the same. We can't appeal to the moral senses of our oppressors or their benefactors, whether here in Britain, in the US, or anywhere else. We have to reclaim our narrative. We have to tell and retell our stories to our younger children, to our young Palestinian generations first and foremost, and then to the rest of the world. We have to rediscover our strategic depth. All the nations that stood with us throughout the years had this shared anti-colonial experiences from Africa to Asia to South America, all the indigenous people from New Zealand to South Africa to Hawaii and everywhere else. We need to bring all these energies back. We need to rediscover all these energies and rediscover our narrative once more. Thank you so much for listening.